The Rebel Capitalist Show.
I know that you got introduced to real estate when you were a kid, but when did you start investing in real estate on your own? Tell us that story.
Well, I come back from Vietnam, so this is in '73, and I was a Marine pilot. I had no money, and so I go to see my old man, poor dad, and he says, "Well, why don't you fly for the airlines?" And I said, "I'm a helicopter pilot."
A little different.
You don't want me flying your airlines for you. Can we fly a little differently? And then he wanted me to go, get my PhD and all that stuff that he did. And I said, I don't want to do that. So I talked to my rich dad, and he said, what should I do? He said, well, you should become an entrepreneur and buy real estate. So, yeah, I'm like 27 years old. I go, but I don't have any money. I mean, how do I become an entrepreneur and buy real estate if I don't have any money?
Right.
Rich dad just cracks up. He says, you answer that question, you'll be a rich man.
All right.
And so I'll leave that with everybody here, because the reason I was commending you about always being curious is most people stop when they can't do something. And so when he said to me, when you figure out how you can be an entrepreneur and invest in real estate and not have any money, then you'll be a rich man. So it becomes the perpetual riddle.
Yeah.
That makes sense to you. So we all have different riddles in our heads. And that was my riddle. I said, how do I do this? And so I'm watching television in Honolulu with Waikiki, still flying for the Marine Corps. And this TV ad comes on and says, you too can make money in real estate with no money down. So since I had no money, I signed up.
You fit the bill.
I said, that's me. But they kept their promise. They taught me how to make money without money. And that's how I started buying real estate. But that led me into the next thing is, how do I start a business without money? And that's what entrepreneurs do. You did the same thing. I do the same thing. But most people stop at, I can't do it.
Right.
So it becomes an addiction in many ways. It's, okay, what is the next challenge, should I say? How do I do this? How do I do that? And that's why in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I said the most dangerous words are, I can't. At that point, you've stopped. And then the next word becomes, how can I? And that was one of the most valuable lessons my rich dad taught me, because he was a man who had nothing also. But I think the problem today is too many people think that the college degree is going to get them past I can't. So no, it actually makes you more stupid.
Right.
Because you actually think that college degree, you know something. But the lesson I learned from that real estate class for nothing down in 1973 was he said, your education begins when you walk out the door. And so for all the college graduates out there, do you walk out into a job or do you walk into the abyss? And I think you and I like the abyss.
That's right.
It's more fun.
Going back to real estate, now with a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, which most Americans don't realize that is not a free market loan. That the free market would not come up with a 30-year loan, because no bank is going to give you that money for that long at a fixed rate of interest.
Correct.
Because they know most likely they're going to lose purchasing power to the rate of inflation. So that has to be subsidized by the government. Most people don't realize that. But you look at where interest rates are right now, and I mean, they're like, what, 2-3% you can get on like a rental property, or maybe 4%, something like that. But then you look at real estate, the asset itself in most markets is in a bubble. Prices are even higher than they were back in 2006, adjusted for inflation. Right. So it's weird, because most people historically have seen the property as the asset and the debt as the liability. But now, especially with these 30-year fixed rate mortgages, the debt is the asset and the property is the actual liability.
Yeah, you got it.
Crazy, isn't it? So why don't you expand on that a little bit?
Well, if you look at a balance sheet, income, you have asset and liability. In my head, what is the liability is cash.
Right. Yeah.
And what's the asset is the debt. So all I'm looking for is an excuse for the banker to lend me the money.
Right.
And you know, like there's other guys like I don't know, live debt free and all this. I go, are you crazy? See, debt is tax-free money. If you can understand that, it's tax-free money. You know, basically because in 71, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, the US dollar became debt. And so the people that win are the people who take the time to understand debt, to learn how to use debt, how to secure debt, how to raise capital on debt. And on the other side is the person who went to school to get a job and they work for money and then they pay taxes.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Right.
a thing that I always talk about is real estate is a game of debt and taxes. The more debt I have, the less tax I pay. And it drives people crazy.
But they don't understand. I don't think they understand that concept, Robert. So there's a lot of things there. Just initially, if you get a loan, obviously you're not paying taxes on the money that you receive, and you can put that to work, making positive cash flow. But also on the equity, if you hold that asset, and a lot of super rich guys do this. I don't know if you've done this, but I know Elon Musk does this. He'll buy, let's say. Or even better, he'll leverage money against his stock. So he won't sell his stock, so he doesn't have the capital gain. But then he'll borrow money against the stock, and that's what he'll use to fund his lifestyle. So he doesn't need to have an income. So he never pays taxes because he never sells to have the capital gain. And those are the dots that I think most people don't connect.
Yes. Yes. And people say, well, do you sell your real estate? Do you sell your gold? Do you sell your silver? Do you sell your Bitcoin? No. I have to pay taxes.
That's right. Yeah, there you go.
I would rather find another property or a business or something to borrow money. Because remember this, debt is tax-free money. And when it goes to negative, we'll probably go into negative 4% interest rate before this whole thing stops, before the hemorrhaging stops. So the person that's being murdered is mom and pop who are saving money. You know, look, if there's a balance sheet, the liability is cash, especially today.
Yeah, right.
If they're printing so much, and they have to print more, you know that, I know that. They have to print so much cash, and these people are trying to save it. It's nuts.
Yeah, right.
Whereas cash is the liability, debt is the asset. So the skill of the entrepreneur is to figure out what somebody will give me money for to buy my asset. And that's why real estate has traditionally, and I think it is still the best. I can go to my banker and I have a $30 million property, and they salivate because they make money on the debt, whereas the other people are trying to get out of debt. It's opposite in thinking.
And also, too, one thing I want to point out, Robert, is if you have debt on a property, I know there's a loan to value ratio and whatnot, but let's just say you've got 100%. You have a property, you've got 100% equity, and you borrow 100% against it. So you got a $30 million property. The bank gives you 30 million. So now you got the 30 million in your pocket that you can go use somewhere else, but you've got positive cash flow, let's say, coming in from that property. If the property goes down in value by, let's say, 50%, what do you care? You're not selling. You don't care what the bid is on the property, and you've got that 30 million, that equity in your pocket, probably, well, not in cash, but you've got it allocated somewhere else, generating more positive cash flow in an asset that could potentially be cheap instead of in a bubble. So it really limits the downside. And you get to a point where if you set up your portfolio properly, if prices go up or down, it doesn't matter. It's like owning a McDonald's. Do you care if your broker comes to you and says, oh, you know what? You paid $1 million for that McDonald's 10 years ago, but now because interest rates went up, you could only get 950,000. You'd be like, who cares? Why are you even telling me this? I grew the profits from 100,000 up to 250,000 a year. This thing's a cash cow. I don't care what someone would give me on the open market. But see, I don't think people really understand that.
No, because they've been taught to save money and get out of debt. It's
Yeah.
opposite. But that's not to say you just jump out there, because real estate is like a suicide mission. Also, if you buy a bad property, it's like being the skipper of a Titanic. You'll go down with it,
There
if
you
you
go.
over
Yep.
leverage and things like this. So that's why, I started with a little $18,000 unit back in 1973. And the last deal I just closed was 110 million. But the property didn't go up, but my education went up. I don't mean to say just jump out there and buy something, but it takes planning and experience. I made mistakes and things like this, but that's how you get smarter. But our schools punish you for making mistakes. That's why school teachers are poor. They
Yeah.
punish people for making mistakes. How else do you learn?